What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports here to give you the edge for this UFC MMA 14 fight slate on DraftKings. Cannot wait to break it down. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future MMA content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.dgfantasy.com. On dgfantasy.com, we give you cheat sheets for every major sport, along with ownership projections, actual projections, and strategy for every single slate. We also cover optimal cash plays as well as preferred GPP plays and stacks for specific contest sizes. We do the dirty work for you. We are also currently partnered with Fantasy Cruncher, the best optimizer in the industry. When signing up for our $30 package, you also get a $20 credit to use towards any Fantasy Cruncher product. We provide the best value in the industry. And now let's go ahead and dive right into this 14-fight slate here with Kevin. As always, let's go ahead and cover last weekend's recap, Kevin, and then we'll move on to the main slate.
Sweet. So, yeah, welcome, guys. Last UFC fight night was Ladd versus Dumont. Go through a little recap, Matt. Pretty odd night for MMA and DFS, just everything in that world, all things considered. I was dying laughing at the slate, Matt, because I think I told you I essentially made a meme build where I just picked all 6 female fighters.
Yeah, but you're sexist. Go ahead.
But I'm sexist. Yeah, I put my money on 6 female fighters, but I'm sexist. And did 2 stacks. One was a 3-round stack, which again, it's a big no-no usually. I cashed pretty easily in all my double ups. And I think there's something you said for that, Matt. I definitely want to go into some more like build theories and like break stuff down. I think there's a system there, and I've thought about this for a while for cash games where I don't think it would work every single time. But again, Matt, it's about being profitable more than not in the DFS world, correct? It's all about,
I think so. Last time I checked.
I mean, yeah, it's like if you're profitable 70% of the time, then it's worth it, right?
Yep.
That's the goal. And I think that you can figure some sort of system here. If like, say there's one main event on the card with a low finish chance, or one main event, obviously, one 5-round fight on the card with a lower finish chance. You stack that and you find another low volume fight to stack, and then you just load the heaviest favorites. You can fit all that in most times in the UFC card. So you got basically 2 people who so then you're really just banking on those fights scoring okay. Like you're guaranteeing yourself 2 winners, guaranteeing yourself 2 losers, but you're banking on those fights scoring okay. And then you're just banking on like probably a minus 300 and another minus, high 2 something to win their fights, which will happen again much more times than not. So
in cash
odds
games.
are, what'd you say?
In cash games you're referring to.
In cash games, only cash games. This would be terrible for everything else. Terrible. But yeah, I mean, maybe even like if you want to like scale it back and just do 50-50s instead of double ups, so you like have a better chance to like get there, because obviously your scoring won't be off the chart. You're giving yourself a high floor, very low ceiling. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know, something to think about. I definitely want to play with that more. But
so,
anyway,
you'll see all the sharks. That's why they stack so many fights, and people call them idiots, and then they end up cashing in their double ups. Yes, that is exactly why.
Yep. I think it's a smart technique. I really do, Matt. So, but let's go through these fights. Yeah, I digress. First fight on the card was Pelosi. She was very green, maybe even a love lister. I can't recall. She smoked the slate, Matt. That is 2 great showings for her in a row that we took her both slates. Made us cash both times. She's awesome. Love her. Gonna keep loving her moving forward. We talked all vid about Dana's power. I told you even Brandon Davis was tweeting about it. Like, I know he's got power. He acknowledged it. Dana knocked him out. First round, as expected. Lupita Godinez was a disappointment, Matt. May have just been a flash in the pan in her first fight, which was only a week prior. But she had so much trouble dealing with the length of Carolina Luana, and could simply I watched the whole fight. She went 2 for 15 on her takedowns, Matt. She just couldn't deal with that length, which is, I'll tell you, as someone who's been wrestling for 20 years, wrestling tall people fucking sucks, Matt. You know, it's you think of it this way. When you go to lift someone off,
beat me when we wrestled, but yeah.
Yeah, I know you would beat me, fucking pin me 10 times in 1 minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about lifting, like, and you could tell, like, if you're an elite wrestler, it's not an issue. But she's not an elite wrestler; she's a good wrestler. And the problem is she couldn't deal with that height, couldn't get her off the ground. There's a big. This is the way I like to look at it. I always tell my kids this, Matt. If someone's 5 inches taller than you, that's 5 inches more you have to lift them off the ground to finish your single or your double, because you can't give them that plant leg, and she's giving her that plant leg every time. It's like she just wasn't making the adjustments. That's why she was 2 for 15. Roberts was next, and he was green as a punt and won, though he was super low scoring, decision behind him. What did Roberts score? Pretty bad.
Roberts scored 54.94.
Yeah. It's funny. I marked him live as an underdog, which a lot of people didn't do, and he did win, but he scored like shit, so that wasn't really
Still better than his
great.
opposition, that's for sure.
That's definitely true. I said my favorite GPP on the card was Silva to knock out Sanchez. It just made the most sense, and that's exactly what happened. Silva scored great. What did Silva score?
Silva scored 79, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he did.
I thought he scored a lot better than that. Let me see his line.
He made the optimal.
Obviously, I'm wrong.
He made the optimal at 79. He was the lowest scorer on the optimal, so.
Okay, good. So I guess I wasn't completely. Where was? Give me one sec here, because I definitely want to see.
Yeah, this
thought
card
his like, and
was very
sometimes like there's these weird fights where the scoring looks so much better on paper, and find this fight. Oh, Lad Dumont. There we go. And it's just like, oh no, I'm an idiot. I'm a big fool. Actually, not really. Okay, I guess so. This is one of those ones. I guess this is just the difference of a third round finish. Like he had 100 total strikes landed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I find it so hard to believe that with 100 total strikes landed in a third round finish that he didn't score. It
showed 6 strikes landed for May 70. So
6 strikes. What's it have for total strikes?
Total strikes thrown. It doesn't have that on here. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's pretty terrible. Yeah. I mean that's what I always say. One of the worst things that can happen in MMA is a third round finish because the scaling is so much. Like, what's the goal for MMA? We always want to be in that like 100 range, right?
Yep.
How easy is it to get to 100 if you have a first round finish of what is it, 90 points?
Right.
Like you get 90 for a first round finish, obviously you're in. You get a quick finish bonus, obviously you're in. You're in the optimal, guaranteed.
Right.
If you have a second round finish, odds are, unless you literally sat there on your thumb for the entire first round, you're going to make the optimal because it's 70 points for a second round finish, Matt. You know what I mean? Now the scaling goes big for the 30, for third round finish. Now you're at 45. That's only 15 points more than a decision. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why I guess, didn't score as well, when he got the finish, but made the optimal, like you said. Pretty weird. Did not see that coming. Next on the card was Nate Landwehr and Ludovic Klein. I said Landwehr was live. I liked him. I think he's a decent fighter. I definitely thought Klein was going to win that fight. I was very wrong on that one. I thought Klein was going to absolutely just smoke him. Did not happen, obviously. So that was a little surprising. Nate Landwehr, might be coming up the charts a little bit, especially with his win over him. And then Darren Elkins was an impressive fight too. So now he's got 2 pretty impressive fights in his UFC career here. So Manon Fiorot versus Mayra Bueno Silva, I said was a love list on either side. I really like Manon Fiorot. She was in my, this was actually my 3-round fight I stacked, Matt. Manon Fiorot, she probably scored okay, I'm guessing.
She scored 87.95, so made the optimal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, pretty low scoring optimal.
Did not make the optimal, sorry, just because of the price tag.
Okay. I was going to say, yeah, pretty, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you just told me what's his head did. Next was Jim Miller, who I said was actually very live, Matt, which is really funny just because we looked at it, I think he was a minus impressive. 270 price tag. What'd you say?
It was impressive. Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. I mean, he was minus 270 price tag on a, what was his price tag? 8,700?
Yep.
Yeah, 8,700. And I didn't watch that fight, Matt. I just thought he had a huge grappling advantage. I know he only had 1 takedown. You watch that fight, you said?
I did, and it was just so weird because he was throwing heavy punches, and it was like the exact opposite of what you expected. So that's
crazy.
The entire time he did get the knockout.
Yeah, he did. I got second round knockout. How'd he score?
He scored 103.45.
103. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at the line here. 1 takedown each. Like, if you told me that Jim Miller was gonna win this fight, I'd be like 99.9% chance. He's got 2 takedowns, 3 takedowns, and like 12 minutes of control time. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. That's weird that he did, because I mean, I don't think Eric Gonzalez offers anything for him except on his feet. So like, why would you keep it there? Interesting though. Good for Jim Miller. Moving on, we have Andrei Arlovsky versus Carlos Felipe. This is one of those ones, Matt, we talked about. I told you that this was going to be one of the most boring it has the potential for the most boring heavyweight fight of all time, just because how these guys, fight in their pace. It's still live because you can't fade 2 heavyweights at $8,200 and $88,000 pricing. But it was it lived up to it was exactly what we thought was going to happen. It was the worst fight of all time. Like, they literally had 185 total strikes each.
I'm sorry, but like I never hated an MMA fighter watching an MMA fighter as much as I hated watching Felipe. Well, I don't know what was happening. He was so cocky yet so bad.
Was he? I didn't watch the fight. I didn't watch it.
I just got instantly annoyed at the way he was acting the entire fight. Like, he was telling what's his face to punch him, but he couldn't throw any punches back. It was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I hate that. Like, they're coercing them to like fight them. And they're like, they're back, and it's like, dude, you can fight too. Like, you can push the pace. Like, it's a fight. Like, there's a cage that stops him from running.
But it was funny, Kevin, because he was trying to push the pace. Hence the amount of he landed 73 out of the 172. he was like punching, but he was just like straight up just missing every time. Then he'd back up and be like, "Come on, punch me!" It was just like, what are you doing?
Be better
You're
at fighting.
Punching.
Yeah, just be better.
You just be better at what you're doing. I don't understand.
That's so funny. Fat little turd.
It was just so annoying because he was showboating the entire time too. He was just trying to sell the fact that he was winning when he knew he was just missing everything.
Yeah.
Anyway,
trick people into not realizing he's a terrible fighter.
Annoying.
But yeah, Andre Arlovsky obviously did not clear.
Yes.
But one more win for his incredible UFC record.
Right.
Aspen Ladd, Nora Dumont, big wrong on this one. I was all in on Aspen Ladd. Sometimes, Matt, I'll take a hard stance because you have to. I took a hard stance here more so because I wanted to. Like, you take a hard stance because, it makes the most sense and you gotta, pick. You to be successful, you gotta pick one. I just thought Aspen Ladd was much better than Norma Dumont.
And she might
I don't know what happened. She might.
We don't
Would
know
say she
what
might
happened.
be.
Yeah, we don't know what happened there. We don't know if she.
Yeah,
just
I was going to say the
show
same
up.
thing, and I'm not like being like I'm not trying to scapegoat or say that I wasn't wrong about this one. I just don't know. I don't know. What the fuck Aspen Ladd just did.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't
neither
fighting.
did her
Like,
coach.
yeah, we saw that. The coach was talking to her. Like, that made like pretty big news. Like, because we're like, a coach shouldn't talk to their athlete this way. And as a coach, I'm split because she's a grown woman. She's a professional fighter. And that's what she needed to hear. And it depends. Like, she should be, if she's soft, then it might have like broken her a little bit. But she should be tough enough to, know that like he's telling her, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're not even like close to where you need to be right now. He literally was asking her, what the fuck are you doing? I've never seen a coach ask.
I will give my stance on that. Nothing that he said was bad. There was literally no, like, he didn't at any point say you suck, like you're horrible, a horrible fighter. It would have been different, like if he was bashing her. And I think
it's more so he believes the talent of her, right, Matt?
Right.
Like he believes, he knows how good she is, and he's like, this is not you.
That's what it sounded like to me anyway when I was listening it back. But yeah, I mean, like, even when I was playing basketball in high school, my coach would tell me, like, we suck. Like, he would literally say, what are you doing? Like, that was a horrible layup. You suck. Wait, go back and be better. And it was because he knew our potential. And like, just me sitting there looking back at this fight, they're fighting. They're physically fighting. If you're able to say that at a basketball practice and fighters aren't allowed to say, coaches aren't allowed to tell their fighters that they suck and they, you're fighting for a living. Like, what's happening? Give me some fire,
Should be able to take it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. She just did not look herself. It's really weird. I don't know if she was sick or, I know I watched it back, Matt, because I remember you were the first person to tell me like what's going on with Aspen Ladd.
And you coach kids, so that's a little different. That is actually vastly different, right? Like you don't coach, grown.
Well, I coach
women.
high school and college people too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I do the whole
Mostly
spectrum.
kids.
But I tell you, I still don't like. It's wrestling, so it's a little different. Don't
That's
worry,
true.
Matt. I'll fucking hammer some 6-year-old kids sometimes. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
But
real quick too, before we move on. Before we move on, we had a tweet. You actually didn't know this. I've been waiting for this moment, Mr. Matt Downs, and big thanks to Kevin for leaning on Landwehr and giving me confidence in Jim Miller. DG Fantasy is the only video I ever watch every Saturday morning. There's a fight. We finally did it, Brosifs. Had a takedown, Kevin. $3,500 on Twitter.
Let's fucking go.
And he played FanDuel. He tied for first with another member, so he would have won, I believe, $5,000. So congrats to that member. Bro. He did add us on Twitter the night that happened. So huge shout out to him. I know he's watching our video, so I had to give him a huge shout out.
That's awesome. Let's go. Congrats, man. That's fucking awesome. That makes me so happy.
But moving on.
That's the point. Let's get in this card, Matt. We got a good amount of fights to go over, so we'll get right through it. First fight on the card is Lazishvili, not to screw it up with Merab Divashvili. Lazishvili. I'll call him Ziviat. It's easier. Ziviat is just another Georgian wrestling machine, Matt, that you can add to the long list of them on the UFC roster. His wrestling upside will make him very green in this one, especially at 8,500. He has good put away ability with his submissions, Matt, but he's good. He's a good overall fighter. I like his takedown potential, especially that pricing. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna put Jonathan Martinez green as well. I think this is a great fight. It could be a borderline love lister. I don't have a finish chance yet, and I'd like to get the ownership and finish chance before I, put my love list stamp on it. But I like Martinez too. He's 4-3 in the UFC. He's a vet. You can't put a price on that kind of experience versus a UFC newcomer like Ziviad. I think he has a style matchup that'll either be very good or very terrible. He's either going to be able to hang on his feet and maybe even outpace him on his feet. He's a good stand-up striker. Or that means he's just going to get lit up with takedowns. But either way, there is a very positive outcome potential on both sides of this coin, Matt.
All right, Kevin, going to the ownership. As you guys know, for the new watchers here, we usually go over the benchmark percentage. The top highest 6 in terms of ownership are cash considered. Anything lower than that is going to be a GPP territory. So anybody lower than an exact 30%, that makes it easy to remember. Exactly 30% is going to be GPP territory. This is a 14-fight slate, so expected to be relatively low on the majority of these fights. Martinez at 22.6%. Sved, whatever his name is.
I'm guessing, yeah.
20.7%. So both looking at below that cash benchmark, Kevin. So both GPP considered. I would look at that finish chance, like you said, to consider this love lister, but it looks to me like the ownership's very low.
Okay, I like that. Moving on, we got Livia Renata Souza versus Randa Marcos. Matt, you know how much I love Randa Marcos and how big of a trash bag I think she is. I bring her up every time she fights. She's
you
just
love targeting her, or you love her?
I just love shitting on her. She's a human trash can.
Got it.
She has a losing professional record, Matt, and I think she has to be. I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but there's just been too many UFC fighters and fights in history. But I've never seen a UFC fighter get a contract or get another fight with a losing professional record. Like UFC professional record. I think she's 10-11. So that's crazy. She's 1-5 in her last 6, yet again somehow gets another fight. I don't know how. Souza is 3-2 in the UFC and has a pretty solid ground game to boot. I don't think Souza is an amazing fighter, but Marcos is, again, human trash can personified. So I think, a couple wins over decent names like Angela Hill and Carla Esparza keep her rostered, but she's looked really bad lately. And I don't know. In her last fight match, she got taken down 5 times in the first round before landing an illegal upkick to get her DQ'd. So I do think Souza is live here at that price for the style matchup, and again the opponent matchup because of how bad I think Marcos is. I don't think Souza is a killer. I'm gonna mark Marcos red. I really do. Just assume she loses this fight, and even if she wins, she usually scores like absolute shit. And this is a 14-fight slate, so I think I'm gonna put Souza yellow and Marcos red, even at that pricing.
Okay. Right now we're looking at very, very low ownership on both these girls. Souza 18.1 and Marcos at 10.8. So for what it's worth, that is very.
This might be a
low.
full fade fight if you want to. I don't hate it. Could be a very boring.
What's the finish chance?
180. Plus 180.
Got it. All right.
So I don't hate it. Moving on, we got Jeff Molina versus Daniel Lacerda. I haven't seen a ton of Molina, Matt, but from what I've seen, holy shit. I mean, this kid personifies the stereotype of like a Hispanic fighters and their legendary gas tanks and their paces. And this guy's awesome, Matt. His fight with Ori was a blast to watch, and his pace was crazy. I think Ori made a really good dance partner for him, which helped. But I really do like Molina, and from what I saw, his hands were awesome. His chin held up to some big shots as well in that fight. I think he's an obvious love lister, Matt. I think Lacerda makes a good counter off of it too, and he's significantly underpriced at 7,500. Lacerda has 12 pro fights with all 12 ending within the distance, so I think this fight is going to be a blast to watch and a huge banger potential. I like Molina a little more from what I've seen, but I think this is near 100% ownership fight overall for me, Matt. I'm going to throw this one in love list for sure.
Well, then you'll love a leverage play here in Lacerda. Okay, Lacerda is 18.9, and I don't think you're going to expect this, but Molina is the second highest owned on the slate.
You know what, Matt? It actually does not surprise me because how did he score in his first fight?
He scored 131,
probably
so that
really
would do
good,
it.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was that? 131.
131.
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fight was crazy with Aori. You go watch that fight. It's on YouTube if you want to see it. It was a battle of a fight.
But that being said, Vegas is never wrong, right? And they priced, or they put Lacerda's win percentage at doing math 38%. So
that's pretty good, man.
I mean, talk to me about leverage here. If this is a high finish chance, 18.9% owned. That's very very low.
And I told you Lacerda only knows how to finish. So
well, there you go.
Even better.
100%.
Yeah, definitely a loveless fight. I still, even with that ownership, Matt, I don't hate it. It is a very big slate. So knowing that ownership, what'd you say it was?
45.9 for Molina.
That is so high.
It is so high. That's what I'm saying.
14 fight slate. Like even if it was just like the second highest on the card, but it was like 38 or that's so high. Yeah, I mean, I still love Molina. I don't dislike him anymore because of that. It's just how much I'll pick of him will definitely change.
I was gonna say if you go like 55% Lacerda and 45, which is matching the public, like that's enough leverage right there. For the opposite side.
That's a good way to put it.
Keep yourself grounded.
That's a very good way to put it. So yeah, love that fight. Another love lister back to back, Matt. Kama Worthy and Jai Herbert. Worthy fights are just main. You just must target Kama Worthy fights, Matt. He's the definition of a glass cannon. Huge finisher. Has been knocked out in all 8 of his losses.
See that?
Yeah, he's a glass cannon, man. And Jai Herbert, though, he's been pretty disappointing in the UFC so far. I was excited for this kid, and he looked awesome in his first round against Francisco Trinaldo, but then fell apart. It didn't get much better for him in his second fight, where he fought a stud grappler in Renato Moicano and ended up on the wrong side of a rear naked choke. But I think the volatility of this fight and Kama Worthy make Herbert an obvious love lister. There's one of those ones where it's like, it doesn't really matter who Worthy's fighting. Both have to be love listers almost, you know what I mean? I'll say at that price, if Herbert was fighting anybody else, it would not put him on the love list. But this has a minus 250 finish chance at great pricing and for good reason.
Oh, guess what? This is the fight that nobody wants to touch, because one's going to score 0 and the other one's going to score 100. So there we go. Yeah. Worthy 16.5%, which is actually higher owned than Herbert at $8,800 at 16%, Kevin. So
16 and 16.
It's 16-16. Yeah, it's pretty split.
Dude, that's fucking insane. Yeah. Hammer this fight.
I'll give it 2 thumbs up.
I'm not saying like I see worlds where Herbert can win a boring decision, and then obviously it's not hitting. Kama Worthy at 7,400 isn't going to have to do much to clear that. So if you want to take him a little more, but that's really low ownership. I would hammer this fight, man. That's the
leverage potential for sure.
Let's see here,
and their price tags make him very easy to land on.
2, 3, 3, 3, 3. Third highest finish chance on the card.
Yeah,
and it's all relatively pretty close between those 3. So
price tags.
Yeah, price tags, awesome. Hammer it.
There you go.
No, that's dumb. Moving on, Jamie Picket versus Lariana Staropoli. Staropoli has been on a little bit of a skid lately after starting 2-0 in his UFC career. Hasn't really gotten like washed in any of those losses, but he definitely lost those fights. He definitely didn't win them, I'll tell you that. Pickett is definitely a step down from his last opponent, so I'll say that in terms of talent. Pickett's very dangerous, hits like a truck, but I don't think as a talent level, he's on that same level as Staropoli, hence the line. This fight doesn't pop off the page for me. I see potential on both sides. I think Staropoli, again, I think is a tier above Pickett. That said, Staropoli's he's a polished striker. He's got good Muay Thai. He's a polished striker. He'll throw in some takedowns in there, but he could get caught, and he is on a little bit of a skid here. So it's live, but there's way better fights on this. Like, it's a 14 fight slate, Matt, and there's better fights. But what's the ownership here?
Staropoli is at a 15.9. This might be the combined lowest on the card, by the way. Pickett is at 6.9%.
Yeah, when you see a 9K fighter at minus 230, at how much ownership?
15.9, Kevin.
Yeah, that's pretty red flag. That's like, and you see why. Like, there's leverage there now, which is why I'll keep it yellow overall. But I totally understand the public's concern with this fight, Matt.
Okay. So yeah, the price tags definitely are bringing down that ownership. All right, moving on.
Yeah, I totally get that. Moving on, we got Tabitha Ricci versus Maria Oliveira. Actually, an okay finish chance in this one, Matt, minus 110. You guys know how much I hate paying up for these favorites who are winless in the UFC. And Ricci, at minus 240, 8,900. Hate that because obviously if you're not as proven, I don't trust you. But Ricci has been solid outside the UFC, ran into a buzzsaw in her debut against previously mentioned Manon Fiorot. Oliveira is making her UFC debut finally after falling short a couple years back on Dana White's Contender Series. Solid finisher. She's been finished a fair bit herself, which probably explains the finish chance being minus 110 right now. But I don't love Ricci, but there's some volatility in this fight. Could bode well for GPPs. Ownership will help me through this one, Matt. This is a weird one.
Oh, yeah. Ownership's going to help a lot. Ricci at 15.6, Oliveira at 12.4. Oh.
All right, I'll double green it. Yeah,
there you go.
It's definitely it's worth it. I mean, the pricing's just good enough too, where it's a little bit better than I'm looking at the Pickett and Staropoli fight. This one probably is better than that. It's on the lower end, but I like it more than the fight we just talked about.
Right. Yeah. Any fight's better than the last one we talked about. All right, moving on.
True. Moving on. Mason Jones versus David Onama. Recent add to this one, Matt. This is a weird one. I don't know what the fuck to do with this one.
Ooh,
Mason Jones.
What's with the price tags? Oh my god.
Yeah. Mason Jones, though he's 0-1-1 in the UFC, Matt, has actually looked pretty damn good. I mean, I don't get too excited for people who haven't won in the UFC in 2 fights.
Yeah, he's fighting football players, Mike Davis.
Yeah, I know, right? And he's still losing. But he's looked really good volume-wise. His fight with Mike Davis, Matt, was very, very close, razor-thin decision. His fight with Patrick, he was beating the shit out of him pretty good, but accidental eye poke ended that. I like his striking. I like his volume. I like his wrestling. That's the 3 things you want to hear the most when targeting someone in DFS. You know what I mean? It's just 9,500 for a guy who's winless. And I get it's a late edition, and David Onama's making his UFC debut. And David Onama is 8-0, Matt, with 8 finishes.
That's scary.
Guy cracks. Yeah, so I'm gonna go double green here in a very weird way. It's volatile. It's good for that reason. I'm not saying Jones can't clear at 9,500. It's definitely like I like the fact he brings some wrestling and volume because I think you're gonna need to. Like a second round finish might not clear that price point. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to get some good wrestling in, some really good strikes landed, or a first round finish. This is that price tag where it's like a second or third round finish might do it, as we just might not do it, just like we talked about with who was it, Bruno Silva last week. You know, he was at a great price tag and he made the optimal because of it, but like he got its third round finish and scored 79 points.
Right. So. Onama at 7.6%, Mason Jones at 29.7%. So the ownership continues to be low on some of these fights here early, Kevin. So really like the leverage potential here.
Yeah, no, that's big leverage, and it's a weird one. It's definitely going to scare some people off.
Weird one because of the pricing too. Sure.
Yeah, like that's creative. Like he's the most expensive by 200, I think, right?
Yeah, if Onama wins or Mason Jones are going to break the slate at their price tags 1,000%. Or sorry, if they score well, they're going to break the slate on their price tag. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. Moving on, we got Park Jun-Young versus Gregory Rodriguez. Great pricing, Matt. It'll be a green fight overall. Just short of the love list here. I do see potential though because Park is kind of hit or miss. He's had a solid finisher outside of the UFC. Has yet to have a finish in the UFC, as we usually see, Matt. It's shocking. People talk about this all the time. They're like, yeah, he's a great finisher. It's just like he has not been as good lately. I'm like, yeah, he's fighting better fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
like what, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when people come out of like college, like who was that guy? Who was the running back on the Browns? Like 5 years ago.
I know. Who was it?
The one he had like 40 touchdowns in college, but it was D2, I think. But it was like, or 50. It was something insane.
I forget. I know exactly.
Crowell. I think it was Isaiah Crowell. It was just, it's so funny. It's context. I don't care if he has 40 touchdowns if he's playing midgets. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, same thing with, obviously Park Jun-Young. He's beating the shit out of a lot of bad people. Not that he's not good, but he's been doing good in the UFC. He has a 3-1 record here. The standout fight for Park was obviously his win with John Phillips, where he landed the most. This fun fact, Matt. Park actually has the most ground strikes ever landed in a 3-round fight. I don't know
what that means.
So ground strikes. I take you down, start hitting your face. That every time I hit you, that's one. That's one.
So he just doesn't let you up.
Fight. No.
Like.
Well, it's funny because I don't think he's this prolific wrestler. I don't think like he's not Khabib, but right. In the fact he has that record over Khabib in 3-rounders. I think it's more of John Phillips being a trash can. We've seen him look like a trash can many times, but still he landed 258 strikes on the ground.
Another fun fact, don't know if you know this, Park has been a underdog in each one of his fights so far.
No, I did not know that. Who was his last fight against?
It was how do you say his name? You said Chukwi. That's who it was.
Yeah, and he won. That's right. Yeah.
Again, all slight underdogs, like it's by the thinnest of margin, but still an underdog.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And he scored pretty badly, right?
He scored against Chukwi 76.87. Yeah, not the best.
Yeah, it's not great. Do you have his score against Phillips there?
I do, 127.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's why he's green and not love list. He's hit or miss. I definitely, that Chukwi fight was a little bit of a floor fight. I remember that. It wasn't super, overwhelming performance. But yeah, Rodriguez is live here as well, Matt. He's the cheaper fighter on an even line, as we know.
You already know who's going to be ownership there.
Yep, exactly. Good finisher, coming off a good win in his UFC debut, beat Dusko Todorovic, who's a good fighter. I like the grappling takedown ability I saw from Rodriguez as well in that fight, and think he can score well in decision here. So it's a coin flip fight and double green.
Rodriguez at 30.6, and again, it's by the thinnest of margin, but it's slightly higher owned than Park at 30%. So we're talking about, again, when this comes to time of block, I can only assume that Rodriguez is going to be higher owned because of the price tag. And also, I think it's leaning now in his favor in terms of the Vegas odds. So by the slightest of margin there, Rodriguez should be relatively chalky and makes these both make the benchmark, by the way, because it just doesn't look like they know what to do here with this fight. So one person, or if you're making a lineup, they're taking one side or the other, or just stacking in cash because of the price tag. So Rodriguez Park, very interesting. Could be a slate breaker here for sure.
I like that. I stand by that. All
right,
moving on. We have Nikolai Negomorano. I think I beefed the shit out of that one.
Probably but it's all good.
Doesn't really matter because he's fighting. Doesn't matter. He's fighting Ike Villanueva. Ike Villanueva is also a human trash can. I say this every time. He has power. I'll do the Ike Villanueva synopsis. Big power that you can't teach, but he's trash. So I'm gonna mark him yellow. He's always got to have some. What'd you say?
You hate guys.
It's the worst. It's the worst. The absolute worst because you got to keep him yellow. You got to give him his hands some respect. But he's just simply not.
Loses.
What'd you say?
But he's scoring 0 when he loses.
Yeah, and it's just like he's probably gonna lose. It's a minus 300 finish chance here. Nikolai's a good finisher who has some power as well, and I think he puts the lights out here on Villanueva, I will say. That's the best chance here. That being said, I've been pretty damn unimpressed with Nikolai in his short time in the UFC, Matt. His win is a very close decision win over Alexa Kamer, where he just as well could have lost it. And his actual loss in his UFC debut was a fucking train wreck, man. I don't know if you remember this, where he fought Safaraz, but he got dominated. As bad as I've seen someone get dominated, he was outstruck 139 to 20.
It looks like it, yeah.
Gets 70 to 11 and 6 strikes and taken out 3 times during the process. So he got fucking deleted in his UFC debut as well. Again, this is the opponent in context is everything. If he was fighting someone more talented, I would never pay $9,100 for Nikolai. You know what I mean? But he's fighting Ike Villanueva. Both need to be, live here for that reason. I'll do Nikolai Green because I do think he is a better fighter than Villanueva, but Villanueva has power, and I was not impressed with Nikolai.
Looks like an ugly one.
It's ugly. What's the ownership?
Villanueva at 8.9%, which is good leverage if you believe that's a good pump play there. Nikolai at $9,100 at 22.4%. So yeah, the ownership's low on both of these idiots.
Yeah.
That kind of gives it more appeal here in GBPs. So
yeah, I mean, it's the highest finish chance on the card, Matt.
Oh, it is.
So,
okay. Then yeah. I'm double green lighting. I don't care what you say.
Okay.
I'm gonna green light the trash bags. So.
Okay, cool. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. I might have to go. I'm at as much as I'm like, I hate it. Just knowing that ownership, I might have to go. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, do I go 100% ownership?
Yeah,
like it's a minus 300 finish chance.
Guys, so, if you're building big GPP lineups, then it would not be stupid to go 100% on this fight with the. I'm just looking at the ownership. I mean, you're having near it looks like 65% of an edge if one of these two make it into the optimal. That to me looks like a very obvious choice here. Very obvious stance.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Matt. I mean, it's just I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like, what more can I say?
It's just not an appealing two names. And again, casuals are playing MMA still, so gotta take advantage of it.
Yep. No, 100%. Moving on, Matt, we have Francisco Trinaldo versus Dwight Grant. Trinaldo kills me every time, Matt. You know how much I hate these 90-year-old fighters who just don't leave. Jim Miller's one of those guys, but when he came in with his price tag and his favorite line last time, it made me a little less hateful of Jim Miller. But Trinaldo's not facing that. This is the worst case scenario. It's like a near even finish chance. It's mid-range pricing, and you got some vet who just doesn't really finish anymore, but also doesn't get finished. And it's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, it's just like, leave. Like, he sucks. It's so frustrating. And he's not a bad fighter. He just sucks for DFS. He has some gas in the tank. He's a good striker. He's still putting wins together. It's like a Lowsky. Like, dude, just give it up. You're still good, but you're annoying as hell for DFS. It's so ridiculous. And Trinaldo's a guy who slows paces down, Matt, so it's even worse. It's kind of like we talk about the Browns, how they slow the clock down, and it kind of kills everyone around him for DFS value. Same thing with Trinaldo. He just kind of kills the DFS value in fights. I'll give Trinaldo his standard yellow, as I do every single time, because yellow is exactly because half the time he scores well, half the time he scores like shit. So even more so, maybe a little more like shit. Well, read his last win scores, Matt, maybe.
Yeah. Trinaldo 19, 89, 52, 50, 10, 97. Like, it is pretty annoying.
So yeah, it's like a couple 97 there, high 80s, some shit in his losses, and obviously some lower scoring wins there. Standard yellow.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
Grant, I'm gonna put yellow too, just because it's a Trinaldo effect. It's I can't give him more, knowing what Trinaldo does to fights and how Grant scores in decisions. Well, Grant doesn't score super well. Look at Grant's volume against Alan Jobin and Sekulic, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about with Grant. So,
and the finish chance is near even.
Yeah, plus 110. Frustrating, huh? Welcome to my world,
because
Matt.
the ownership's even more annoying because Trinaldo's 20.6%, so it's not like an obvious leverage play because it's kind of somewhat annoying. And then
I almost think that's good enough to fade to me. That's high enough where I'm like, see ya.
Yeah, 12% for Grant, so that's equally as annoying because that's also low.
I would be more inclined to take Grant.
Okay.
At that ownership, that would push me. But I mean, no, they're still both yellow. I hate them both. But
okay. All right, moving on.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Moving on, Alex Caceres versus Choi Sung-woo. Caceres is always worth a punt, Matt. He's played that part many times for us, many times. We've seen him as the punt or heavy underdog, and he always comes up with a W, always seems to. So he's going to be a love lister punt. Not the craziest score in the world, but you really don't need him to be at 7K. I also love him as a punt for his jiu-jitsu, and I believe in his grappling ability. This is a guy, he's still, he has 14 UFC wins, Matt, and he's currently riding a four fight win streak. Like, we can't just ignore that. You know what I mean? He's absolutely going to want to get this one to the ground, I do think. He's not going to want to stand with Choi. Choi has hands and was actually he took bronze at the Muay Thai World Championships back in the day. He's a very good striker, as we've seen. He's also on a win streak. Three last fights being victories. He's green, just short of love list. As his pace is good but not great, his finish ability is good and not great. And he's sitting at a pretty lofty price at 9,200, and he's got a tough opponent. But I think he's worth a green. He's a good fighter. I like him. And if you're going to hammer Caceres, you might want to pivot with a bit more Choi.
Awesome. All right. Well, here's a synopsis here. We have Choi at 24%, Caceres at 14.5. So pretty low ownership here, Kevin.
Yeah, that is low.
You want me to greenlight them?
Yeah, I mean, greenlight them both for sure. Okay. Caceres is love lister, and Choi's definitely green. So.
All right. Got it.
Pretty cut and dry. Love that one. Plus 140 finish chance, so don't expect one, but I see potential. Moving on, we got Jessica Rose Clark versus Jocelyn Edwards. Jessica is just average personified, Matt. She's a kickboxing background fighter, purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Doesn't do either amazingly or poorly. She's, just average, average finisher, 3-2 in the UFC, average record. She's just average pricing, 8,500. What more do you want?
Is she
plus
average?
200 finish. She's average, Matt. Okay. She's, looking.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I need a refresher.
Need a refresher.
Jessica Rose Clark looking.
Are
we doing normal people standards or UFC standards?
Let's go normal people here.
She's average.
She's average. Okay.
UFC fighter. She might be above average in both.
How many beers? No beers?
No beers.
Wow.
There's never any beers for me, Matt. Never any beers.
Especially when you're chasing the paychecks there. Of course.
No beers ever for me. For anyone. You, TJ, I don't care. But anyway, yeah, I think she's got potential. It's plus 200 finish chance, Matt. It's not great. She's just a solid, well-rounded fighter. Edwards is okay. She's huge for the weight. She's 5'7". She's looked okay. This is another frustrating one for you.
No, I'm just still laughing at your comment.
Oh yeah. Oh no, never beers, Matt. Never. You got to stand by it.
I lower your standards all the time. I get you. The older you get, the standards keep going down, Kevin. At least for me.
100%. They don't exist anymore. I don't know, Matt. This one sucks. I hate the plus 200 finish chance fights. You know that. I hate the fact. I feel like I'm getting recency bias in my head with the Luana Carolina and like how she used her size. And Jocelyn Edwards is going to do the same. She's stint and has a decent pace to her. Solid striking, but she's shown some holes in her wrestling, so maybe Clark can get an advantage there. I don't know. What's the ownership? It's a nightmare.
Ownership is 27.8 here with Clark, and Edwards is at 15.2, so it's also right below that benchmark, so have fun.
Yeah, let's go double yellow. I think you could fade this one, though. I got a good feeling this one doesn't make the optimal.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm cool with that. With the ownership, it's a little bit of annoying, too.
Okay,
so.
I like that. Moving on, we got Grant Dawson versus Rick Glenn. Like Grant Dawson, don't get me wrong, but I told you guys this was going to be a super top-heavy, card. The main event carries this one, Matt. It's the next couple UFC. Yeah, it's the next UFC events that are going to be the bangers, but this one's kind of top heavy, which is the main event. I'm a little confused by the finish chance by this one. I will say it's a near even finish line. Rick Glenn is talented and tough to finish, but Dawson has been on a tear. 3 finishes in the UFC, 15 finishes of his 17 professional wins. Dawson's a fucking monster. Super heavy favorite at minus 360. I like Dawson here and think he probably should finish still. He'll be a love lister. Very good wrestling, grappling. Carries big power, very well rounded. We saw, his fight with Leonardo Santos lately. We did see Dawson struggle more so than usual to get in the takedown department during that fight, but he got the job done with his hands in a 3rd round finish. So I think he's going to be an obvious love lister, like I said. I think Glenn is tough and gives me no reason to doubt him. I just, love what I've seen from Dawson.
Charts whenever he wins.
Glenn?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. A couple times anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Glenn has a ton of high-level experience. We talked about that, Matt, that veteran experience, and has hammer in his hand, so it's not the worst 6.9K punt in history.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with him because I do like Dawson.
Yeah, well, guess what? Glenn is 9.8% owned, Kevin, compared to Dawson's 44.1. So you already know what I'm going to say. You need to include him in your player pool, and you need to be overexposed to him because guess what? If Dawson loses, everybody's turning off their TVs before the main event. Just hate to any DFS player because Dawson's going to be mega chalk at a minus 441 favorability, and we have him at a 9.3K price tag. He's not getting faded, at least in cash. He's going to be the biggest chalk here on the slate, in my opinion.
Yeah, Rick Glenn has been in the UFC for a bit. He's got some high-level wins. I mean, he's beaten Dennis Bermudez, Gavin Tucker, who, I think is
never been this big of an underdog, but still very good.
Gavin Tucker's a good fighter.
Vegas is giving him a 19% chance. So You think that's accurate?
Yeah.
19.
Yeah, I think that's like dead on. Like I was
Okay.
gonna say like 20.
Not
I
like
think it's,
19.5 or like 18.
no, not 19.5.
Exactly.
Never that.
Yeah, 19. Gotcha.
I think that's. I know. I was just saying because I think I had 20 in my head, but
Oh, okay. Sounds about right.
yeah. I mean, Rick Glenn is not a bad. I mean, I love Grant Dawson, but Rick Glenn is not a bad punt at all. I'm just looking more at like Rick Glenn. I'm convincing myself like more so how I don't hate Rick Glenn.
I agree with that based on
It's making me want to go
previous
100% on the
DK.
fight.
Yeah.
Whereas more so, I think Rick or Grant
No,
Dawson.
100% would give you a ton of leverage. Yeah, I like that.
So, all right, cool. Let's move on, Matt. Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vittori.
But before you do anything, apparently Discord is very passionate about this fight. I will say I've seen nothing but memes and like people taking stances and calling people out. So
Really,
just before that's what I've seen so far. And
I think it is that is not surprising to me at all because I think it's the fight to do so. It's a very tough fight to predict. I'll tell you this. Costa, the whole weight thing. I don't know how familiar you're with what's going on right now with his weight, Matt.
I don't. Let us know.
Beautiful. So, I'm sure a lot of MMA fans know this already. Costa came out, I believe it was Thursday.
Okay.
I'll say Thursday, which is yesterday. Yeah, I think it was Thursday morning, and said that he wasn't going to make 185 straight up, like not happen. And they were like, "The fuck, dude? You got 3 days." And he weighs apparently 211 right now.
What?
And yeah, he's yeah.
What?
Have you seen Costa?
No,
to
Kevin,
be fair,
I have not.
Go watch him. Go watch him on YouTube when he trains with Logan Paul.
Okay.
Logan Paul is what 6'1", some change, something like that. 6'2".
I think he said 215 on his podcast today. Watching him.
Yeah,
and
he
his
fights cruiserweight, which in boxing, I admittedly have no fucking idea what weight that is.
Yeah, why did they change it up? Why did they change up the categories? Kind of annoying.
Well, to be fair, boxing coined it, so I can't be mad.
No, that's. I guess that's true. So MMA.
We still, but it is different weight classes also. Like our welterweight is not their welterweight. So Paul weighed 189.9 pounds, 189.5 when this fight with Floyd. So let's say watch.
Really? I didn't realize he was that light.
Pound guy, 6'2", good athlete. Go watch him next. Yeah, go watch him next to Paulo. It looks like two different species. Like the fact that everyone's just like looking at the video, like how the hell does this guy make 185? So it's not surprising that he doesn't that he's having trouble. It's just like, bro, you've done it before. You know what your job was. You knew the assignment. Like get there. Like, dude, you're never going to hear a fucking peep from me, like, having sympathy for people not making weight. I've been a wrestling coach for 12 years. You know what I mean? I used to cut weight like crazy.
What's going to happen?
Make weight.
What's going to happen when he doesn't make it?
He wants to do a catch weight of 195 pounds. That was his suggestion. If I was Dana, I'd be like, this is coming out Thursday. You got, a good X amount of weight. I mean, Matt, right now, when we're recording this, it's probably somewhere in the mix of what's going to happen. Let's see if anything new has come up.
That's crazy. Maybe that's what the Discord was going off about.
Costa Vettori, here we go. So yeah, it's as of literally 10 minutes ago on Twitter. It is set for 205. 205. Which is what so it's gonna be a light heavyweight fight. So it's not even a catchweight fight, which is kind of crazy. So Marvin Vittori, weighed in at 204. Oh. So he was like, sure, let's just do it. Okay. I'm sure he was gonna make middle, but was like, fuck it. Right. To be fair, I always thought that Costa should be a 205 or anyway. I think he would do awesome up there. I don't think he could beat Izzy. I think he might have the juice to beat Jan. Even though Jan beat Izzy, it's styles, it's size, it's everything. So that being said, going into this fight at 205, obviously, I think Costa's a little bit bigger human than Vittori. So, I mean, Vittori's a fucking monster, so I can't even say that fully confidently. But I think the weight change helps Costa a little bit. I wonder if that affects the line a little bit. What's the latest Bovada line we have here, Matt?
I don't know. Bovada, yeah, they're probably more updated. I'm seeing 185 for Vittori and Costa 152 plus 152, basically.
Okay, so that's actually a little bit more in favor of Vittori than last I checked.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll tell you why. I like Vittori here. I'm gonna break this down real simply, Matt. Going off, there's a couple things to unpack here. Going over the Izzy fights that they both have, Vittori has had 2 good fights against Izzy. One was a split decision loss. The other one, Izzy definitely got the better of him. Vittori thought he won for some reason. He didn't. Wasn't that close. But Vittori did open up some holes and expose some holes in Izzy's game, some chinks in the armor. He took Izzy down, I think, 4 times, which is pretty impressive. He landed decent strikes. Where we looked at Paulo Costa's fight against Izzy, and he just got fucking deleted. He never offered any sauce for him, never had any game for him.
Yeah,
it was not close. But Costa was obviously undefeated before meeting Izzy, beating some good fighters. Vittori, has been on an absolute tear over the past 5 years and hasn't lost anyone in the past 5 years besides Izzy. So they're both right there at the cusp. I mean, they both haven't fought Whitaker, which is kind of weird to me because I think Whitaker probably beat them both. But Costa has good takedown defense, but I do think Vittori will heavily rely on his wrestling in this one. I'll tell you this, Matt. There's an old adage that I stand by every single time, and this is an absolutely more times than not, it's the smart play. In a 5-round fight, you go for the guy with the gas tank. You don't go for the power puncher, obviously. But some people, for some reason, just can't get that through their thick skulls. I don't know why. Vittori has the better gas tank. We saw him go 5 with Izzy. We saw him go 5 with Hermanson, right? It was a 5-round fight, I believe, with Hermanson.
Okay. Yeah.
Paulo Costa does not have that gas tank.
I was going to say, he hasn't. Has he not fought in the 5-rounder yet?
His only one was Izzy, I believe.
Oh, was it Izzy? Okay. It doesn't show.
He got knocked out. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, he does not have the gas tank. That muscle comes out of cost, Matt. So I think if it goes past rounds 2 to 3, Vittori bags him, and I would assume most 5-round fights go past round 2 or 3, or go past round 2 at least into the third. That's just statistically speaking. It's a -135, which is not that high. It really is not that high. Last I checked. Let's see if that's adjusted at all.
Yeah, no wonder the odds are favoring Vittori based on the gas tank thing, like you said.
Yep. If it was obviously a -400 finish chance, that's different. Yeah, it's moved a little bit, Matt, but I'm looking at -140, -1. This is, DraftKings has the finish chance at -175. It's not like -400. So,
right.
Looking at Bet365 has it -140. So yeah, there's a decent chance it could go the distance or at least deep rounds.
All right. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you before I even read the ownership, because I think you can assume it's pretty high. Stacking, yes or no?
Yeah.
1,000%. 47.6% on Vittori. Costa 35, so they're both heavily above that benchmark, like we said, and it's all because of that pricing. Vittori $8,600. Oh, don't get me started about pricing. Costa $7,600. That just doesn't make any sense to me. This is a stackable fight. It will be stacked in cash. You'll see all the sharks stacking this fight, so just stack it in cash. And then it allows you to get some flexibility here with the other guys. Let's go ahead over your GPP cash plays and punts, Kevin.
Okay. GPP cash plays and punts, obviously core for everything is going to be Vittori and Costa, obviously. GPPs, Molina and Lacerna. Winner should smoke their price tag, even a decision. Worthy and Herbert, we just talked about low ownership match. Someone should die here, I hope. GPP plays Dawson, assuming he will be higher ownership, as we talked about.
Yes.
And you said he will be, but love his talent and scoring potential. And then punts, Alex Caceres. I think he's a really good punt option here.
All right. And we can kind of throw Bricklin in there as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's definitely someone I'm leaning more towards. You sold me more on him for sure.
All right, yeah, especially this ownership, guys. That will wrap up our video. It was a bit of a long one, but for good reason. It was a 14 fight slate. If you guys did enjoy this content, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course, smash that like button for all of our future MMA content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your weekend, and let's cash.